Right, this is it. This is it. So we are right about this. This is absolutely clear and correct. So that Public Order Act, the earlier one, the wording kind of tries to make it sound not as good for us when it is. So this is the Public Meeting Act 1908, and this act actually was made for this purpose and no other purpose. This Public Meeting Act 1908, it doesn't have anything else in it. It's like just one or two pages, it's just like one thing for this, right? And this is what this law is meant to mean. This is what this law is supposed to be for. And I believe that this is without doubt based straight on the 1688 Bill of Rights for freedom of speech as well, right? It says here that penalty on endeavour to break up a public meeting. It doesn't say political meeting though, it says a public meeting, so it can mean, that's general, right? But it does say the word political in here, and that's what's important. So I'll explain to you what's happened, but I still think that it applies because it's still, that Public Order Act is still in effect. It says any person who at a lawful public meeting acts in a disorderly manner for the purpose of preventing the business for which the meeting was called together shall be guilty of an offence, and if the offence is committed, if the printed transaction of a business, if the offence is committed at a political meeting held in any parliamentary constituency between the date of the issue of a writ and the return of a member of parliament for such constituency, and the date of which a return to such writ is made, he shall be guilty of an illegal practice within the meaning of 46 and 47. It's Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act. And in any other case, on the summary conviction, liable to a fine not exceeding £5 or to imprisonment not exceeding 1 month. But it says any person who incites others to commit an offence under this section shall be guilty of a like offence. Well, the thing is, when it says a political meeting, it's concentrating on parliamentary elections, but we know that using the right to petition, you are doing a writ. It says for a writ of a return of a writ. When you're writing a petition, you're drafting up a writ and you're sending it in. There's no doubt about that. But it says a political meeting for elections, but the whole offence as a whole includes any meeting. It says penalty for breaking up public meetings, so it means public meetings. So it doesn't have to be a political meeting, but it's even more serious if it is, and for elections. That really is a little bit undermining of petitioning, but it still includes it because it actually includes any public meeting. It doesn't have to be for a petition, but it will include that as well, without a doubt. What's interesting about this is that it makes it an offence for encouraging it. Now, I believe that Mark Zuckerberg and Nick Clegg together have done this number 2 here. I believe that they've encouraged it. Incitement and encouragement. What they've done is they've said, we'll have Facebook groups and some of them will be political. And what they've done is they've dished out these little power buttons. And they've actually given little mini Hitler buttons to administrators who aren't competent or responsible enough to use them, and encouraged everyone to do it to each other. And it would be all right if it was just for, pony trekking, but it's not. It's for serious matters when people have to give evidence on the table and talk about serious legal actions towards councils or the government, right? And people are getting censored and removed when they haven't actually done anything wrong or upset anyone. Some admins are just like, we don't know. They're just like trigger happy. And they might not even, they want to save trees, but like they want to be the ones who save the trees, or, it's like they're trying to control who can speak and who can't speak, and who's allowed to lay what evidence and not. And in a meeting, that's illegal under the right to petition because everyone's got the equal right. I think that Zuckerberg has incited it, and I felt this the whole time. It's just felt wrong. I'm like, particularly when other people are saying, "Oh, thank you, that was interesting," or "Thanks for this," or "I like that," and then an admin comes along, and then for no reason at all, it just like either pulls the post or switches your commenting off, and I'm like, why has he done that? People were like interested in that. It can only be either out of jealousy, out of the fact that either they want to be the champion of the group and not someone else to come along with something better, even though they're meant to be, we're trying to save the trees, but no, I'm the one saving the trees, you're helping me, I'm not helping you save the trees, you're helping me save the trees, or whatever it is, right? Something along those lines, or they just don't understand it. You put it and it just goes straight over the top of the head because it's too intelligent, it's too clever or too intellectual for them to understand, and they don't get it. Or some nupty comes along with some really cheap comment like, whoopee ducky, ducky ducky, whatever, tinfoil hat or whatever, because they're retarded, right? Now, I don't mind that if, they want to, but if they, I'm not stopping them from, I don't, when other people post things, I don't get involved in it, unless it is really ridiculous, I try to let people do what they want, I don't get involved in other people's things, and I, if coming along to someone that someone's put, if you haven't got anything constructive to say or you're not really interested, then don't comment. This is it. You get people, but it's mainly admins. And it's worse when you've got about 5 or 6 or more because they don't have the same opinion, so you can't have a standard, or you don't know where you are with them. If you've got Jack, and Jack, and you're acquainted with him, and you know who he is, then he's predictable. You can predict him like, oh, Jack won't like this, or I'll have to approach it in this manner, or But when there's 9 people you don't know, you don't know what their reaction is going to be at any given time. So you're guessing with them. And when you're in a meeting, it's, it's fact. You can't be playing around with character roles. It's not some play when you've got important things to do. Right, we've got an objective. We've got to do this, right? I've got this fact, that fact. There's this procedure we could try. You need to be able to say it, and then you look at it and say, if we don't want to do it or not. You can't have people fanning around with buttons, we don't like, they're making out, if it's a group of 100 people, then the 100 people will decide whether they think it's a good idea or not. That's a meeting. But then when you get one admin going, they're kind of acting on everyone's behalf when everyone, 8 people like it, and then no one else dislikes it. Then you get an admin come in and they're like, I don't agree with that, or I don't think, it's, this is it. It's like ownership. You can't have a group of 100 people where one person suddenly says, I own these people, they're my people, I'll decide what they should hear or not. You're getting into authoritarianism then, and it's fascism, This is supposed to prevent that and facilitate talking. Now, they did remove that word, they did remove a few of these words from this. It's got it here as well, representation of the people at 1983, yeah. And what's this one? The Public Meeting Act. It's just called the Public Meeting Act, actually. It doesn't even have a date on it, that one. So it hasn't got a date on it in the Public Meeting Act. It's political meetings. Now, I think in the it refers to the Representation of the People Act as well. So the Representation of the People Act 1983, so it's effectively the same. It's effectively the same. This subsection does not apply in the country. So it means the same thing as it meant in the first place. And what they've got is they've got a separate, for the political meetings, they've put it in the Representation of the People Act, but only for elections, right? I don't know why they don't want to mention petition. They don't like the right to petition, and they don't like the provisions of the 1688 Bill of Rights, and they don't really like confessions of that in these other acts. So there's an argument that whenever it says on an election in Parliament and a writ that something meant for Parliament, it really should apply to petitions as well as elections. But it does apply to petitions because it applies. They've written it so it applies to pretty much. You could probably argue it for business meetings as well. You see, when Extinction Rebellion, go into these NatWest Bank meetings and so forth and break them up, like those AGM meetings, I guess you could say that. Really, you're raising this. But, ironically, you get Jacob Rees-Mogg with his national conservatism and whatever and whatnot, and these AGM meetings for banks. And they get the security straight in and get it sorted out. But when it's us, when it's the people, when it's the common people and the workers, right? No one's there to save us. When some admin guy, one of the administrators is, throwing people out when they haven't done anything wrong, breaking up the meeting, preventing them from giving evidence. And there's no getting their address and taking civil action on them, particularly what happens if they take all the evidence from the rest of the group, walk away with it, steal everyone's statements and evidence that is required for a complaint. Well, I can't even subpoena them. I fill the subpoena form in, I've got the name, but the court can't send them a letter because there's no address. This makes it so the police can contact them to give their address over and they've committed an offence, right? Now, they've removed the words from it, inciting people to do it. If it was still under the original form, then I think that most definitely would be a very serious criminal charge against Mark Zuckerberg, Neil Mohan and Paul Groves, without a doubt. The wording for it, for the first original, that it's inciting other people to pull people from meetings and ban them on a whim, when it's for political purposes or even for, it's encouraging people to do it, inciting them to do it. And even under the current wording, it's illegal. And it's clear what the original meaning was. So, I had a suspicion that it's got to be illegal. This, it's a planning. We're in a group talking about a planning application, and people who have an interest in objecting to it, and it's over a legal representation to the council. And I've just put, a suggestion for something we could do. Like, these appeals to House of Commons that we could pursue and other things for annulments. It's a good idea. And you're getting removed. And it's usually people on a whim, probably women as well with, emotional, wiggles, whatever. And the worst thing is that the previous group, she just removed the group. She had like a personal family, I think she split up, right, with a partner, which, fair enough. Anyone can be upset about that. But what she did with her emotions and upset was she like, if I can't, if I can't have the group, no one can have the group. So all these years, 7, 8, 9, whatever years or more of archives of legal statements and photographs and information about planning objections, videos, all of evidence that you need to, when you're writing to the council and giving citations of cases, facts, referring to other objections, and generally people's statements, how many people oppose things and that. She's just took the evidence, right, that other people had submitted their statements. So you need that. I needed it, and I couldn't even fill the Sabina in. This is responsibility. That is one of the reasons why I just said earlier in another video, right? I didn't know that all that Extinction Rebellion kerfuffle over the suffragettes and women's votes, right? Fair enough, but they didn't make it clear that women did have a right to vote, and they only didn't have a right to vote for a relatively short amount of time in history. From actually Representation of the People Act, it took their vote and then given it back to them later. So women were only not allowed to vote for a certain period of time, which I didn't know that. I thought that they never did. But I looked at the 1688 Bill of Rights. It says elections ought to be free. And I'm like, well, it didn't say anything here about women not being allowed to vote. It says that they're free, so that's anyone. Well, yeah, they could vote. Upset certain people with money as well, or landowners and things like that could vote. But they started trying to charge people money, or even money for petitioning, and they made that illegal in the Bill of Rights as well, charging. So actually, I was right when I read the Bill of Rights. I was scratching my head. I'm like, why is it always going about women didn't have the vote when it says elections ought to be free? Well, they used to be able to vote, but it was regarded socially as apparently socially, it wasn't cool for women to vote or whatever. I think that, the fact that women, they took the vote away from women for a short amount of time, I'm not picking on women because there's some guys who have got issues, but, this is the thing, women are emotional, so sometimes if a woman's upset, she might do something because she feels a certain way, right, which we all need to, condolences for, but intellectually, when people are engaged in certain things, proceedings and so forth, then, it's important things that are needed or required. Not to say that, people also can use, like if you're ill or upset or whatever, you can be excused from legal proceedings and so forth. True, but, this is what, it's not just like a casual get-together or a casual meeting, this is not about you. Like, if you're upset, right, and you don't feel like going to the meeting, then, that's fair enough. Maybe people need to go home or get a hug, right? But when we're talking about people who are pulling other people out of meetings, people who are, stopping other people speaking, or particular things being put on the table, or pulling them out of a meeting, right? Because of them being upset themselves, you're not just withdrawing yourself from the meeting voluntarily. You're actually actively serving to disrupt it and ruin it for everyone else. And that's where I think that, when, if someone's got a group and there's a hell of a lot of important evidence on there, and they take the attitude like, well, if I can't have the group, no one can, or, if I've been upset or someone's pissed me off, then, I'm going to take it out on everyone and take it down. And that's what happened with one of the groups, and then the other lady made another group. And then because I was pursuing the other lady to get the evidence, and she was upset that I was pursuing the other woman when she'd already upset everyone else. It's just like, you can't have meetings under those circumstances because it's not stable. There's no stability. There's no consistency, and, I wouldn't mind, but people give condolence, I'm speaking in this attitude now, but, when these things are happening, we're like, oh, what's the matter? You're all right, or you're saying sorry all the time. And some people just, can't handle it or whatever. if, maybe this is why people start these groups, the council are ruining the trees, so everyone's upset about it. The women, are emotional about losing the trees. Well, that's why they started the group, because they're emotional, and then they need to object against it. But, if they can't handle, it's like they can't handle the trees being lost, and they can't handle the group that's supposed to be there to protect them. It's just like it's like a bag of, you can't just be an ocean of perpetual, wind of emotions all the time. These laws are there so someone else can act, If you are too upset to act, then someone else can act for you or help. At least, if they can have the evidence, but not take it down. And this is what it's about. Maybe Zuckerberg, he can't handle, these are the laws, Mark, company policy, federal and state law. Oh, no, yes, but, Mark doesn't like this and Mark doesn't like that and Mark wants to change the world. Well, that's not the law, though. Maybe Mark's policies, are like some woman's windy emotions blowing all over the place. But what actually ends up doing is they get themselves in a mess because this is illegal. And Mark's not a woman, and neither is Neil Mohan or Paul Groves. They're not women, they're men, So it clearly is unlawful. It's actually, what the main thing with this is inciting people, encouraging people to disrupt meetings, and all we're getting really is ministers. You see, this is where it really hammers us, right? All these Extinction Rebellion people are turning up at these meetings, these AGM meetings, or disrupting the council meetings, so they claim, or whatever, or various other disruptions. And the ministers are straight on it. Oh, we don't like this behaviour, we'll have to change the law. But when Mark Zuckerberg is sending Sheryl Sandberg or whatever, and they're meeting the ministers, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, in their nice, lovely committee meeting in Parliament, they're not worried about our meetings being pulled. They're not worried about button pushing. They're not worried about people's material being pulled down on Facebook in important council objections, because we're objecting against the Labour Party's plans. We're having meetings to object against government. We're having meetings to object against, planning. The Labour and Tories don't like that. So we're getting no assistance, no enforcement. We're getting no help from them at all. In fact, they're encouraging Mark Zuckerberg and the Deputy Ex-Prime Minister Nick Clegg. They're the ones who are creating these platforms, encouraging and citing being shunned and objected from groups when you're behaving perfectly normally. Encouraging this fascist power, which is illegal now, actually, so it turns out. So the ministers they've been in secret meetings or in these committee meetings planning the whole thing with the big platforms and then giving the platforms immunity, which is actually probably planning and inciting the removal of people from groups and meetings online, right? So I need Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act action against the Department of Culture, Media and Sport for these meetings they've been having with these platforms. And that's Joe Biden as well. Because all of the time, and then this 77th Brigade and Battalion, like on Big Brother Watch, has been admitting they've been pulling things down, pulling people out of meetings. So they've broke the law. They're criminal. And under the Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act, they can't use privilege to get out of it. They can be prosecuted under proceedings. They can't get out of it. Ministers and councillors and lords cannot evade criminal charges, right? They might not go to prison, although depending on what here it says in the Corrupt and Illegal Practices Act, if they've got privilege, but they can be removed from certain positions and things like that, although we're getting MPs standing down on a daily basis. It's like a merry-go-round. but we need something doing. Zuckerberg, he doesn't have immunity from this. This is a crime, a felony offence. It's not a third-party copyright claim. They've only got immunity from third-party copyright claims when they're not liable because it's Party A and Party B and they're just a facilitator, so they get immunity because they didn't upload the video, right? This is them intending to pull people out of important meetings, political meetings and so forth, who are converging on their platforms. And that's illegal, particularly when the person hasn't broke the law. So what they're doing is they're making their own policy, so we can pull people for any reason or no reason, or whatever. When those political meetings, what happens if those political meetings are about, changing the law in, sexual offences and something? You got to talk about it. But yeah, YouTube are pulling it off, saying, it's against policy. No, actually, it's illegal to pull people out of meetings. That's what's illegal before you pick up a pen to write the policy, right? Don't write any policies that might conflict or be contradictory to people having important meetings over getting the law made or changed, for a start, So, the actual conspiracy. Any person who incites others to commit an offence under this section shall be guilty of a like offence. Well, that's YouTube and Facebook and Nick Clegg as well, and they can't use privilege to get out of it either. I doubt we're going to get a police investigation into it under corrupt and legal practices. But, we've got people's channels have been taken down. We've got, people getting removed from groups, which, and we've got, we're losing, people are suffering. They're getting noisy building or other disruption to their lives, and they're desperately trying to, in these groups, they're running around like headless chickens trying to figure out how to stop these councils and government through processes. They're getting ripped off by judicial reviews. When you come in there with the solution or the answer, if someone doesn't understand it or get it, we're getting pulled when we haven't actually misbehaved or done anything wrong. So this is why this law exists.